All right, this is lesson 7.1. This is day 2. Just a continuation of what you did yesterday. We're going to review the law of sines again and how it works with a triangle. Then add in one more little part, not solving triangles, but one more thing we can do with triangles that comes out of the law of sines. So first of all, remind yourself, what is the law of sines? And it's basically this formula right here. Side A over the sine of angle A is the same thing as side B over the sine of angle B, which is the same thing as side C over the sine of angle C. And you notice here we have 6 letters. You never use all 3 parts of this together. You pick out 2 parts of it, maybe the A part and the B part, or the A part and the C part, and you use that as a proportion. If you know 3 of the 4 things, you're able to solve for the 4th thing. So I'd like to do one review problem, which is here, and then show you this one more application of the law of sines that we can use to find an area of a triangle. Okay, we said law of sines works when you have 2 letters the same. So you look at this problem, you've got angle A, angle B, and side C. Initially, it doesn't seem like you have 2 letters that are the same. But you also know in a triangle there's 180 degrees. And if I take off the 74 degrees, and if I take off the 26 degrees, I can easily figure out what angle C is. So let's do that. If I add up right here, I'm subtracting 100. So our 180 minus 74 is 106. 106 minus 26 looks like 80 degrees. So angle C is 80 degrees. Now that we have that, we have angle C, we have side C. Let's get side A. So we're going to go A over the sine of A, and that's 74, equals C. C is 9, over the sine of C, which is 80. Here's a proportion. How do we solve a proportion? Cross multiply. And after you've done this a few times, maybe you're not even showing this next step. But if you do show this next step, you cross multiply. I get A sine of 80 equals 9 sine of 74. So what does A equal? 9 sine 74 over the sine of 80. All right, at this point we need a calculator. Eyes on your calculator. We're back to degree. Let's see if we can pull up that calculator. Bring that onto the screen. So your calculator, our mode is in degrees. Just check that out and make sure you are in degrees. Yep, we are. And now let's take this 9 sine of 74. And we'll divide it by the sine of 80. And this should give me side A. Angle A, 74, is a little less than angle C, so I would expect, I know side A is going to be less than side C. So something less than 9 I should get for an answer. And look at that. We'll round to the nearest tenth. Looks like side A is 8.8. All right. We've got side A, we've got angle C. Only one more thing to figure out. That would be side B. Cannot use the Pythagorean theorem. This is not a right triangle. We will set it up just like the previous part, except we'll use B's. So B over the sine, what was angle B? 26 equals C, 9 over the sine of 80. Okay, solve proportion, you cross multiply, you divide, and just see if you can do this. Skip a step here. You're going to get 9 times the sine of 26. You're going to end up dividing by the sine of 80. So it doesn't look a whole lot different than figuring out side A. So 9 sine of 26 divided by the sine of 80. Let's bring out our calculator. And maybe we're a little lazy, so I'll just go second enter on my calculator. I'll get that formula back, and I want to change the 74 to a 26. Oops, I went up one too far, didn't I? See if we can get that. We'll see if that works. Oops, a little too far. There we go. I want to change that to 26. And again, B is by far the smallest angle, so side B should be the smallest side. And I come up with 4.0 if I round it. Put that away. And side B equals 4.0. So what a nice, easy way to solve triangles using the law of sines. All right. that was a review. You've done that before. Here's the one part that's new. And there's, you know, the formula for the area of a triangle. The area of a triangle equals 1/2 the base times the height. That's a nice formula, and it works, you know, on any triangle. But every now and then it will have a drawback, because say I have this triangle, and I tell you this side is 7, and this is 6, and this is 5, and I say, find the area of this triangle for me. Well, you're kind of stuck because I didn't put in the height of that triangle. And maybe instead they give you an angle or something like that. So maybe you don't have that height information. It's nice to know other formulas for the area of a triangle. And so here's the second formula for the area of a triangle. And it comes from the law of sines, and it works like this. For triangle ABC, the area can be found by 1/2 AB, and then the sine of the included angle between side A and B is angle C. So 1/2 AB sine of C is the formula for the area of a triangle, and that will work. If you get confused by the letters and say, wait, they didn't give me side A and B, they gave me side B and C, or they gave me side A and C, or whatever. Well, the same permutations on this will work. So 1/2 AC sine of B is always got to be the angle in between the two sides, or 1/2 BC sine of A, because angle A is in between sides B and C. So as long as you have two sides and the included angle, you can find the area of the triangle without ever knowing the height. So it's a second formula for the area of a triangle. And how can you tell when it's going to work? Look, if you have three different letters, BCA, ABC, ACB, then you know you can use this formula for the area of a triangle. All right, let's try it. Find the area of the triangle, and it really is just this simple. So I've got angle A, 42.5, side B, side C. What's the area going to equal? Area equals, oops, lost my connection here. Let's see if that comes back. Area equals, it's going to be 1/2. Try it again. It'll be 1/2 times 13.6 times 10.1. I think we got her now. 1/2 times 13.6. Just want to erase that one dot. That'd be a little confusing with two decimals in a number. 1/2 times 13.6 times 10.1 times the sine of the angle in between there, 42.5. And at this time, it's just a calculator exercise. So I've got 1/2. I've got 13.6. I've got 10.1. And I've got the sine of 42.5. Okay, just looking at the two sides, the 13 times the 10 is 130. Half that is 65. And then the sine is always a number less than 1. So an answer, in the 40s or the 50s or something less than 60 would be appropriate. And I get that answer. So I'll save that. And that is the area of our triangle, 46.4 square units. Here's a couple more problems, same setup. And again, the point is, as long as your three letters are different, you can use this formula. So look here, I've got an A and a B and a C. Looks perfect. 1/2 A, B, times the sine of C. Just that easy. Let's just quick get the answer so you can check it and make sure you're doing it correctly. Move this somewhere where we can see the equation. All right, clear that. So I've got 1/2. We've got it times 35.1 times 43.8. We've got it times sine of 72.2. And there we go, 731. If we keep three significant figures here, round that to 732 is our area. All right, what a great formula. Kind of fun to use. Now we come here to this one, and you realize you do not have three different letters. You have a side A, you have a side B, and an angle B, but you do not have three different letters. So what can you do with this? Well, we can't use our formula directly, but we notice we have two letters the same, you could apply the law of sines. So law of sines, and we're going to get A over the sine of A equals B over the sine of B. And we're actually getting ahead of ourselves just a little bit. We're going to do more of this in section 2, but this will work for right now. Solve a proportion, cross multiply. I get 45 sine of A equals 34 sine of 78.1. And the sine of A is going to equal 34 sine 78.1 divided by 45. All right, let's do this first, realizing there's still one more step to do after that. Hopefully you realize that. If not, we'll explain it. So here's 34. Here's the sine, 78.1. Let's divide by 45. Got that. I get this answer. Kind of a small answer. But guys, that's the sine of A equals let's bring that back again, equals 0.739. That's the sine of A. If I want to get A, how do you get rid of the sine? What's the opposite of sine? Don't say cosecant, that's a reciprocal. The opposite of sine is sine inverse. So I need to take the sine inverse of 0.739, so I go second answer, and that will give me the angle. So whenever we did that before when we solved triangles in chapter 2. When you're looking for the angle, that's when you need your inverse trig functions. So I'll take the sine inverse, and I get angle A is 47.7. Keeping significant figures, yeah, 47.7 is angle A. So angle A, 47.7 degrees. And you might look at this and still be skeptical and say, yeah, you need 3 different letters. You still don't have 3 different letters, which is true. But now angle C comes very easily. It's 180 degrees minus 78.1 minus 47.7. So we can get angle C now because we know there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So I'll go 180. I'll take off the first angle. I'll take off the second angle. And let's see what's left. Not much. 54.2 is angle C. So angle C is 54.2. So finally, after a couple steps, I have 3 different letters. Here's an A, here's a B, here's an angle C. So my area is 1/2 times 34 times 45 times the sine of 54.2. And so after a little bit of work, it's kind of nice to have one of these be a challenge. After a little bit of work, we get our area. Let's get that area. So it's 1/2. We've got it times 34 times 45. And when I put the trig function next to a number, it means times. And so times the sine of 54.2. And again, just getting a rough estimate. Oops, that does not look too good, does it? Take that out. Sine of 54.2. Rough estimate, our 2 sides are 34 times 45. So if you just round both to 40, you get 1,600. Half of 1,600 is 800. And then that sine is less than 1. So an answer, I don't know, less than 800, 400 or 500 maybe. So we get 620. Ooh, and that is the bell. That was good timing, guys. So our area is 620. We'll keep that. So 620 square units. And that completes part 2 of this lesson. Look forward to a quiz tomorrow.